morning, everyone. Sabah al-khair jami'an. As we gather here in Riyadh this morning, it is natural that our thoughts tend to focus on recent events surrounding the death of Jamal Khashoggi, a writer, a journalist, and a Saudi citizen known to many of us. May he rest in peace. As a proud Saudi citizen and the Saudi member of this forum's advisory board, I want to tell all our foreign guests for whose presence with us this morning we are very grateful, that the terrible acts reported in recent weeks are alien to our culture and our DNA. And I'm confident that with the support of the government, concerned authorities, and leadership, the truth will emerge. I am sure that we will grow and emerge stronger as a result of dealing with the crisis of the last few weeks, better able to work towards a brighter future for all. After all, this forum is about the future of the regional and global economy, the future of young people and the many issues they face, and the future of investment and the role it can play in overcoming the issues for the betterment of all. I maybe will wait a little bit till everyone is seated. And now, let us move on to our first session. First of what I hope will be a very productive day, the first of several over the course of this forum. May I personally welcome to this forum my fellow panelists, Yasser Romayan, our host, MD, Managing Director of the PIF. Kirill Dmitriev, CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, RIDF. Khaldoon Mubarak, CEO and MD of Mubadala. Welcome, everyone. There is no doubt that sovereign wealth funds have a major role to play in shaping the future, with their ability to commit large resources to the development of industries, technologies, and indeed the global economy. Today, sovereign wealth funds are estimated to manage more than $8 trillion US. And in 2020, according to PwC, this number is expected to reach $5 trillion under asset. Today's panel is a great opportunity for us to explore what drives sovereign wealth fund, to hear firsthand their priorities and the challenges they are facing in meeting these challenges. Are all sovereign wealth funds the same, or are they all very different? We're about to find out. To frame our discussion, I thought we will put this panel under our discussion in this panel under three themes. The first is our goals. What are sovereign wealth funds about? Why do we have them? If their purpose is investing in the future, what are their objectives and investment criteria? How do they go about setting their asset allocation? The second theme is employment skills and technology. Is it the job of sovereign wealth funds to create employment and foster skills, to introduce new innovations and technology to their homeland? If so, how important is it to them and how do they do it? If not, why not? What are their other priorities? The third theme is governance and transparency. As CEO of a family business here in the kingdom with just few shareholders, I have to keep them and all stakeholders, my colleagues, our partners, abreast of what is going on in the company. Whom do sovereign wealth funds report? Who are the stakeholders, and how do you and to what extent do sovereign wealth funds keep them informed? I hope that by the end of this session this morning, we will all come away having gained some insights into the working of three of the world's leading sovereign wealth funds. So let us begin with our first theme. Yasser, as our host, may I perhaps ask you to start the discussion about the theme of goals. Tell us about the objectives of PIF in light of Vision 2030. What are some of the challenges you are facing, and also, of course, some of the opportunities?
Thank you very much. These are really good questions. Sovereign wealth funds are very similar, but at the same time, very different. Some of them look at the future generation fund. Some of them look at what they do as an accelerator for sector developments. And some others just look for the returns or to manage the risks. Within PIF, have maybe a combination of all of the above. We have different mandates to look at investments domestically and internationally. And the investment that we're doing, it's based on good business methodology, whereby we look at the returns that we want to make, we want to achieve, the IRRs that really we would like to achieve would be between a single digit to double digit. And at the same time, we would like to have a contribution to whatever that we're doing. So domestically, as I said, maybe in my opening remarks, we look to have a kind of diversification to our economy, to have a kind of localization of the industries that we're in. As you know, Saudi Arabia is a net importer, if you want to exclude the exports of oil, and we import a lot of the goods from abroad. What we would like to achieve is to have some of the products and services within Saudi. Services like tourism, like entertainment, that we didn't have much, and now we would like to enhance these two sectors.
Do you have you set for yourself a goal, a criteria? What percentage of your assets would be domestic, what international, and which sectors do you want to be in? Is that part?
So in the international front, we just started. We started maybe like 4 years ago. So historically speaking, we were like 98 or 99% of our assets allocated to domestic investments. and today we're almost 10% international. And eventually we would like to be, in the medium term, to 25% international versus 75% domestic. And in 2020, we would like maybe, in 2030, we would like to be 50% international and 50% domestic. Now, that doesn't mean that we're scaling down on our domestic investments, but we're growing our assets. Today, we're short of 300 billion assets under management. The number would be like 400 billion by 2020, and we think, and we are targeting the fund to be in a size of $2 trillion by 2030. With that, we will have a lot of new investments domestically and a lot of new investments internationally. And in our international investments, a lot of people say that we're only looking at technologies and we're not looking at the conventional investments. But I think that's maybe the media focusing on our technologies. We're everywhere. We're in the infrastructure. We announced the $20 billion fund, or contribution. It's a $50 billion fund with Blackstone like a year ago. We have our share in Accor Hotels, which is a conventional investment. In addition to our technology investments, the ones in Uber,
We'll be talking about
the ones in Magic Leap, and some other ones too.
Thank you very much. Kirill, please give us a snapshot of RIDF being the newest sovereign wealth fund.
Yeah.
And as well, if you can tell us a bit about how you view cooperation between all of you. I understand both Mubadala and the PIF, you've done quite a bit of investments together. We'd love to hear of this. And what is your vision and of our Vision 2030? How do you see us?
So first of all, I wanted to thank Yasser for inviting us here. Our goal is economic development through partnership and economic growth through partnership. And we believe that partnership is a key word here. We have done 45 investments jointly with Khaldoon of Mubadala. We've done more than 10 investments jointly with Yasser. And we partnered with more than 20 sovereign wealth funds all over the world. We, for example, are investing with China Investment Corporation into Russia-China bridge, which is the first railroad bridge between Russia and China. We have partnerships with Japan, Italy, France, and many other countries. And I think partnership between sovereign wealth funds is a really great opportunity to move things forward. Saudi Arabia is investing in some of the infrastructure in Russia, in some of the toll roads in Russia. Russian companies, they want to build factories here with support of Minister Al-Faleh. Many our oil companies and petrochemical companies want to enter the Saudi market. So I think partnership is really important, and what we see is that investment partnerships promote better cooperation between countries. For example, OPEC Plus, a deal which allowed us to stabilize oil markets, very good for producers, very good for consumers, was also possible because there was a much better dialogue between Russia and Saudi Arabia. And I have to say that from a Russian perspective, Saudi Arabia is a great partner for us. Not just partner in investments, not just partner in oil, but we are very impressed by Vision 2030. We believe that modernization and transformation that is happening in Saudi Arabia is truly historic. It's very important not only for the region, but for the whole world. We know that young people and people of Saudi Arabia support this transformation, and we really stand by it. We frankly believe that because of the great efforts by the king, by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, this transformation is possible. And I remember he announced the vision of moderate Islam here last year, and we believe that this transformation and partnership with Saudi Arabia with the US, with Europe, with other countries, is really important for the world. So partnership is a key word, partnership for economic growth and for better relations in the world.
Thank you very much for this. Khaldun, Mubadala in its current form is the amalgamation of, I believe, four companies. You had explained it now, four companies getting together. And you have 226 billion assets under management. Can you tell me a little bit about how do you go about asset allocation? And just maybe you give the audience just a brief history on Mubadala and cooperations.
Thank you, Lubna. If you allow me first, I want to thank you for the kind invitation. It's both an honor and a privilege to be in Riyadh today. I also want to thank Yasser and the organizers at PIF for the wonderful organization and the wonderful hospitality. It's also, I think, a particular pleasure for me to be in this panel because I'm with some very dear and close friends and partners. I met Lubna maybe 20 years ago. So we've known each other for almost 20 years. And I remember one of the first transactions we did as Mubadala, complicated transactions, was actually a co-investment with the Ulayan group in a company in Europe. And alhamdulillah, it was a very successful investment and we did very well together. With Yasser and PIF also, not only are we friends, but we also are partners, and we've done well over 40 transactions, I would say together, maybe close to 50. Also quite a successful track record investing together. And with Kirill, I've known Kirill for almost 10 years, and through the partnership that we've established with RDIF, we've also had the privilege of doing well over 35 transactions, and again, a successful track record, which I'm very proud of. So I'm delighted to be with friends and partners. Going back to your answer, maybe a quick snapshot, what is Mubadala? In Abu Dhabi, we have two major sovereign funds. One is the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, ADIA, and the other is Mubadala. Mubadala, which is the company I represent, has assets under management over 230 billion US dollars. We've been established back in 2002, and over the last 16 years have worked on building a strategy to our shareholder, which is the government of Abu Dhabi, of building an investment vehicle to help in diversifying the economy of the United Arab Emirates while investing both in the UAE and abroad. Today, we invest in 15 sectors. We have operations in over 30 countries, and we have a presence from an investment perspective in over 65 countries. This portfolio has been built through a very careful strategic approach in defining the sectors that we want to focus on, defining the geographies that we want to focus on, and then obviously having a clear allocation plan for investment. We are self-sustained and designed as an institution to reinvest revenues generated and dividends generated by the institution while being able to invest the government's surplus investment equity whenever that is available. So we are essentially, as an institution, designed to continue to invest and reinvest our capital while being available for the government whenever periods of surplus are there to continue in growing our portfolio. That is the role that we do as Mubadala. Over the last 16 years, we have entered into new sectors in the UAE, sectors that we felt would add value to the economy in the United Arab Emirates, both from an economic perspective and also from an employment perspective. That's been quite a journey. We've entered into new areas such as renewable energy, telecommunications and the satellite businesses, composite manufacturing for the aerospace industry, industrial sectors such as aluminum, etc., etc. These are all sectors that we have invested in over the years and have developed companies and institutions. Some of them have been made public subsequently that add value again to the economy, generate an attractive rate of return, and provide employment opportunities within the United Arab Emirates. Internationally, we've been careful in our investment strategy. We have a 5-year rolling investment plan. That plan obviously is designed to be meeting the market requirements. Today, we are in the midst of our current cycle. Obviously, we look at the future and we look at new sectors all the time. And whenever we feel there's a sector that we need to look into, we do that. and we pivot out of sectors that are no longer attractive from an investment perspective. So we have a very careful allocation strategy within Mubadala in terms of how we look at our current portfolio and how we look at future investment objectives.
So what we have learned here is that there's a lot of cooperation, and cooperation has led to prosperity to all our portfolios. Do you compete? Do you chase the same investment? And by doing that, or a certain investment, is there a chance of inflating prices?
I think, so the short answer is, do we compete? I think sometimes it's plausible. The investment world is huge. I think it's you know, as much as you try to coordinate and, between institutions, the reality is there is deal flow in countries all around the world. I think maybe if you ask me between the three institutions here, so I'll tackle one by one. Let me start with RDIF. In RDIF's case, I don't think we compete, because our focus in terms of our cooperation is co-investing in Russia. That is really the mandate, investing in Russia. So effectively, we are two institutions with a defined mandate of investing in the Russian economy. And by the way, while we've done 35 investments, and while I can report back today that the returns have been extremely healthy, I will have to say that when we started investing in Russia, we invested in a very difficult time. It was a time where a lot of investors were leaving Russia, a lot of institutions were checking out of Russia, and there was a heavy pressure on the Russian economy. We took a decision that actually this is the opportune time to start investing in Russia. And by partnering with RDIF, who has helped us in deal flow identification and in co-investing, we found, I think, the ideal partner to co-invest with. And the result is we entered the market in a difficult time, and we've achieved, because of that, attractive returns over the last couple of years. And I think that's probably a message to many people, that when you look at markets, I think, you know, it's common sense, but, you know, opportunity comes when there are challenges.
Well, thank you. Kirill, you want to say something?
Yes, I fully agree with Khaldun, and I would like to remind of one of the international investments we did together. Because, for example, we invested in ARC International, which is a French company, the leading producer of glassware in the world. And it has operations in China, in Russia, and UAE. So actually, we invested in a French company with Mubadala, with China Sovereign Wealth Fund, with some of our other partners that enables this French company really grow into our markets. So I think cooperation, as Khaldun said, is very important in each of the countries, and we very much appreciate their support of investing in the most difficult time. But also we can invest in third countries and really bring lots of value and know-how and expertise. And for example, Mubadala has a great know-how in semiconductors through Global Foundry investment. That is of great interest to us. They're doing lots of things in technology, in oil services, also of interest to us. So together with PIF, we share know-how in many sectors. And I think this knowledgeable investment by sovereign wealth funds is the way of the future.
Very good. Now, shall we move to our second theme, employment and skill, and the introduction of technology? We're going to touch on technology. Kirill, I understand that about 40% of the population of Russia is under 40. When you look at investments, do you look at the impact of your investments on employment, about job creation in the country? And for all the panelists, do you see that technology and employment, are they working together? Is technology going to eliminate some of the jobs, or actually it's going to enhance more of the jobs? So I'll start with you and then the other panel.
Thank you, Lubna. Well, we first believe that the big focus has to be on return, because if you produce good return, employment follows. And we produce good returns. Now we have 700,000 people working in our portfolio companies, and we believe employment is growing significantly in Russia. By the way, unemployment is around 4%, so very low. But it's not only about employment, it's about the quality of jobs. And we believe specifically that technology has an opportunity to really dramatically increase the quality of jobs. For example, we recently invested jointly with Alibaba in e-commerce of Russia. And there was a big debate, this big Chinese player, do we partner with them, do we not partner with them, will it create more jobs in Russia? but we partnered with Alibaba in such a way that everything will be localized in Russia, data will be held in Russia, lots of AI jobs will be created in Russia. So partnering in such a way that you create good jobs, I think is very important. And in technology, both through genetics and artificial intelligence and other technological approaches, we believe there could be very new, interesting jobs that are being created. So not only employment is important, but quality of jobs.
Thank you. Khaldoon, do you have anything to say, or Yasser, please?
I mean,
I actually have a specific question for you on technology, if you would. When you invested in Uber,
yeah.
2 years ago, everyone said, wow, you're investing at a 60 billion valuation. What a price, overinflated price. 2 years now, and the IPO preliminary numbers showed 120 billion is
That
the
it?
valuation of Congratulations. The question is, when you made the decision then, what made you make that decision? And did you see where it is going to go to now?
It's the disruptive nature of companies such as Uber. I mean, earlier we said about the job creation and how technology could jeopardize jobs. That's right. It would jeopardize some of the older generation jobs, but it will be creating some new and more jobs.
So do you see Uber creating more jobs?
Oh, definitely. I mean, in Saudi, and here
Yes.
it's creating a lot of jobs. It's creating jobs in every city that it has presence in. It's making life much easier for the drivers, for the customers, and of course for the shareholders. You have better services, more efficient, and at lower prices. So that's what technology is bringing to the table. Why we're investing in technologies, internationally especially, is to the nature of the disruptions that we see, because a lot of things are changing over time. And in the future is changing, and we have to be an enabler for this change instead of getting surprised by these changes coming to us. So we're preparing ourselves. We're bringing these technologies to Saudi. It's not only Uber that we're invested in technologies. We're invested in a number of other companies. One of it is Magic Leap, which is an amazing company, and I think it's going to do a major disruption in a lot of industries, in entertainment, and I think LEDs, screens, computing, the whole thing. So this is basically the incentive that we have to invest in these trends, and at the same time, it's given us a great investment returns. The investment returns that we're seeing is very difficult to be achieved in some of the conventional investments.
Industry. So you're saying technology gives a higher returns and also is a great enabler for creating jobs and higher skilled jobs.
Absolutely, and if you can couple this, the international investments to what we're doing here in Saudi. I'll give examples. WeWork is one of the greatest companies in real estate, right? So they have the shared economy concept in offices and in living. And we're bringing them in here to Saudi. Oyo is another company that is really doing extremely well in India and China. Now we're bringing them to Saudi. Most of our portfolio companies that we have internationally, and I think we have over 50 or 60 companies only with the SoftBank Vision Fund. We're bringing most of these companies to Saudi. Plenty, Oyo, all of these companies are coming in addition to our direct investments. And one of the investments that we've announced recently is Lucid Cars, which is in the EV. And that's one of the things that we would like to be in. I mean, If you look at Saudi and most of the GCC countries, they're oil producers, one of the largest oil producers. But at the same time, we see the electrical vehicles is grabbing market share, and that's why we want to be in, not only for the financial returns, but to localize this industry in Saudi. And this would give us, actually, in fact, even if you look at the new era of oil and where the oil is going to, I think if we save oil in transportation, we can use it in some other industries, like new materials, the carbon fiber, and the petrochemical to oil to petrochemical. And that's what SABIC and Aramco is trying to do.
Thank you. Khaldoon, you invested in vision funds, 15 billion, Saudi Arabia 45. You also opened an office in Silicon Valley to look over, venture capital and technology. So what is your focus in technology and the relationship? How do you see that with the employment?
Okay, I think the first thing I'd like to say is when it comes to technology, one has to embrace it rather than fight it. I think we have to accept the world is changing, and we have to accept that technology is coming, and it's coming fast. But technology and the way it's coming, it's not, in my opinion, taking away jobs, but rather creating a new type of jobs. So it's an issue here of retooling. If you're a country, and I'll use obviously our example as the UAE, or if you're an institution, like many of the investment companies or corporations within the UAE, you have to retool as you set yourself for the future that is changing, where the jobs are going to be different. I can tell you, I think from my perspective, we have yet to have lost a job within our group to technology. We have not. As a matter of fact, we are creating jobs in that space, and even creating jobs within sectors that are changing where we are retooling. So I think when it comes to technology, the direction has to be about retooling and about embracing technology because it's coming. We believe, I think, in a large way in that sector. We are investing heavily. I think to be honest, we are a bit late in the game. I think we should have started many, many years ago. But I think as sovereign funds, we tend to be more conservative, and we tend to take a slower approach, particularly when it comes to high risk, high return, technology type investments. But over the last 5-6 years, it's been an area of extreme focus. And as you said, Lubna, we've committed significant capital into that space. We've allocated that capital, we've invested, we've made well over 60 or 70 significant investments into that space around the world, not just in the United States, in Europe, in China, and Southeast Asia. We've opened up offices in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco, and in Europe, again, particularly with a clear focus on technology in the various space of technology. We're looking within the UAE how we can use many of these investments that we've made to help support, again, developing these industries in the UAE. And I think that's a space that we see significant opportunity in. But to be honest, I look at every sector we're investing, and as I look at the space and some familiar faces in the crowd here today, I have Patrick Pouyanné over there in front of me in Total. We invest together with them, obviously, in the traditional oil and gas sphere. But we see a lot of influence that technology is coming to improve that industry. And that's creating growth opportunity, that's creating investment opportunity, and de facto it's creating job creation. I look at my colleague Mohammed Al-Abbar, who's started this company, Noon, which is in the e-commerce space. Again, that's another significantly successful business with a huge upside, with a huge potential. Yes, it's going into and challenging a traditional retail space, but what it's doing also, it's creating a lot of jobs. So I think my conclusion to this point, it's technology is coming, it's serious, one should not fight it, one should embrace it. When it comes to employment creation, it's going to be creating opportunities, no doubt, but it will require retooling, both at the government's level, across the world, but also at the institutional level. And the companies and governments that are successful in taking the lead in that space, I think will benefit the most in the future.
Thank you, Khaldun. Kirill, do you want to add anything to it? I mean, you have mentioned about your investments with Alibaba, and we've heard about oil services, e-commerce, transportation, and all of this. Are there any homegrown technology investments in Russia that you support?
Sure, and I agree with Khaldun. You know, technology is the way of the future. And going back to my first point about partnership, we approach technology in a very partnership-like way. So we have 8 funds who are our partners in different parts of the world, and we run ideas and companies by them. Because we believe that for technology to be successful, it really needs to be global. Not only this, we have our great partners run their technology by us. And for example, we invested in Didi Taxi in China because of introduction by China Investment Corporation, and investment grew 10 times in the last 3 years because of that introduction. So in Russia, lots of great programmers, lots of great mathematicians. We believe there is a great AI future in Russia. But we also want to make sure those technologies are not just local. They have to be the competitive winning companies in the world. And to do that, we partner with PIF, with whom we have a technology fund. We partner with Mubadala, with other friends around the world to build global technology leaders. And that is very important because if you just focus on one market, chances are that global companies could overtake you. So you have to be global.
Oh, thank you. So you've heard about technology, cooperation, and all the areas open. Now maybe we can move to our third and final theme, is governance and transparency. And Khaldun, I'm going to start with you here. You've just announced first half results of 2.9 billion. Congratulations. You also, Mubadala has scored 10, the highest. Mubadala received a score of 10, the highest from the Sovereign Wealth Funds Institute on transparency. Similar score to Temasek and Norway. Also, this is something you should be very proud of. My question to you is, do you believe that being transparent and open, has this helped you to improve and challenge you to improve more your performance?
Yes, absolutely. I think we've taken a decision from the beginning. When Mubadala was established, the government of Abu Dhabi saw this as an opportunity to create an institution that is going to be a global institution in which we're going to try to set benchmarks as high as possible in terms of the way we operate, the way we manage this institution, and of course, transparency and governance come key when it comes to that side. We've worked hard over the years, and it required really a shift in mindset. The tradition in the past was a more, I would say, conservative approach towards disclosure. The way we saw it is Mubadala, our investment portfolio, more than 70% of it is international, and many of it is in public equities. So in reality, we are public, and we do have a shareholder, in this case, which is the government of Abu Dhabi, that requires transparency, that requires performance matrices, and requires a level of disclosure that from the perspective of our shareholder, because we have to respect the shareholder ultimately, is comfortable of it being both public and being attempting, which I hope we are doing, of setting a benchmark when it comes to sovereign funds and that approach. Has that served the purpose? Absolutely. Has it helped business? Absolutely. What that has done is given us, I think, an extra level of credibility when it comes to institutions around the world, when it comes to partners around the world. Partners are comfortable, much more comfortable working with us because of the level of disclosure. We run almost like a public company from that aspect. And that's helped us because it's helped us bring deal flow, it's helped us bring new partners, and it's helped us enter new markets around the world with, I think, a very open-minded approach. So, I highly recommend it. I highly support it. I think institutions, if they are well run and if they are well managed, transparency and good governance is the way to go, and will benefit them long term.
How do you communicate with your stakeholders?
So in our case, we have a board of directors, a board of directors. That board is appointed by the government as the controlling shareholder or the 100% shareholder of the institution. We then have a typical structure that many of the investment institutions around the room here today have, of a management team with a clear delegation of authority, matrix defined. We have investment committees, we have audit committees, we have all the committees that I think you have probably, Lubna, in your institution. So we've taken a very standard approach that most investment companies have. We've published that. We look at it all the time. We fix it all the time. The government has a very clear requirement from us in terms of regular disclosure, in terms of results, in terms of audits, and etc., which we work with, obviously in a professional way.
Very good. Kirill and Yasser, I'm sure in choosing your investments, you do quite a bit of due diligence, and the more information is there about them, the more transparency and better governance will entice you more for this investment. Does it follow that this is the same thing you apply internally as well? Either of you?
I mean, just going back to the transparency. It's not only PIF being transparent, but the whole country is in Saudi. Like,
Definitely.
we have the Vision 2030, we set our targets, we set our objectives, we set our KPTs, KPIs, and we created 13 different programs for the transformation, which is 2020. One of which was the Public Investment Fund program. And in there, we released a document last year, actually at the FII time. And the document was the Vision Realization Program. And in the Vision Realization Program, we put our short-term plan and medium-term plan all the way up to 2020. And in there, we put the expected GDP contribution, the expected employment, the expected returns, the expected sectors that we're in, both domestically and internationally. So this is the kind of transportation that we would like to give to our stakeholders. And our stakeholders are everybody. It's the Saudi public. It's, of course, our board and bosses. And at the same time, our partners, right? So like Kirill or Khaldun or any other partners that we have either domestically or internationally. So when we go into investments, of course, we do all kind of due diligence, and we would like to have more transparency when it comes to the investments that we're in. So our teams, that's what they do for a living, right? So that's what they do day in and day out, and we always demand them for transparency. In our Saudi portfolio and the Saudi equity, and I think the Saudi market is becoming one of the best markets when it comes to transparency and disclosure requirements, and also with our international investments too.
Very good to hear. Please,
Yes,
Kirill.
Lubna, I still remember when we were founded 7 years ago, we had a meeting of all of the top sovereign wealth funds to talk to our leadership about the best practices of setting up a sovereign wealth fund. And I still remember Bad Al Saad, who is head of Kuwait Investment Authority at the time, one of the oldest sovereign wealth funds. And he said, listen, it's very difficult to set up something that works. But if you set this up, it really has to be independent from the government. It really needs to have transparent governance, and the team needs to be motivated and independent. And basically, the way we are set up, government doesn't intervene in our decisions on investments. We never were told to do an investment or not to do an investment. And I think that's important because we want to make sure that our partners and us are focused on returns. And when you mix lots of objectives in one investment, it becomes complicated. So we believe that transparency is important and frankly leads to better investment decisions. And those better investment decisions lead to better employment and growth and partnerships.
Sure. Well, I just found out that this is one distinction that differs you from both Khaldun and Yasser, the independent from the government. Because I would have to say Mubadala and PIF are very government dependent. Your strategy, am I listening, is completely independent and run independent of the government. So more as an independent fund.
Yes.
Oh, very interesting. Any other comments from any of you?
I would like to add one more thing. I mean, if you look at the role of sovereign wealth funds and what they're trying to do to achieve the visions of their countries, sovereign wealth funds have patient capital. They have long term, all of us. I mean, it's not like we want to come in and we want to flip a trade here or there.
Yeah.
It's
Very
not bad
long-term
idea. It's not bad idea, but
Yeah.
sometimes we have maybe longer term views in our investments. And this would lead us to be sector enablers. We go into new sectors, and we've done it. I mean, we gave, Carol and Khaldoon gave examples. I gave some of the examples that we're in, some of these sectors. We go into these sectors, either they're dormant sectors or non-existent, and we create them out of nothing. All new industries will need people such as ourselves, long-term investors, long patient capital that is willing to come in and to put their money for decade, a minimum of 10 years or something like that. I'll give example. In Saudi, we have in PIF 6 different pools of investments, one of which is the Giga projects. Giga projects is a creation of new ecosystems and cities like, you know, the Giddiya project, the Neom project, and the Red Sea. With the regular investment view, you won't be into these kind of investment opportunities. But if you have the longer term and a vision, coupled with a vision of a country, I think we can do a lot of good to our investments returns and to our countries by contributing GDP and employment and localization and other stuff
Yeah,
of that.
this is where the government, vision has to come into play with
Absolutely.
the PIF. So that's where
Absolutely.
it is different in long-term care. Khaldoon, you recently were looking into exiting an investment in Spain. Tell us about it.
So we were, one of the objectives of the year, and that's common, obviously we do that every year, is to look at what investments we have that are ripe for monetization. One of the investments I think you're referring to is a company called Cepsa, which is a Spanish energy company that we've owned for many, many years. We own this company 100%, and our intention this year was to float it, an IPO the company. The company is a very successful business, very profitable for us, and we feel is now at the right time for some monetization. So what we did is we went through the process. Our intention was to IPO in actually 2 weeks ago, and you know, in September the interest was strong. The markets were actually very attractive, and we took the decision to proceed with the IPO. By the time we were about to hit the market, it became quite problematic. I think the markets got jittery. There was about 8 IPOs that were postponed at that point. We were one of them. And we took, to be honest, we took a commercial decision. We felt that it's probably not the best time, given the situation with the markets. So we pulled it back. We'll wait when is the right time. It's a valuation play for us. The business is great. The business is you know, successful. We will continue to be part of that business. And when we see the market back in a situation where we think it's attractive, our intention is to go back into the market.
Would you say it's a tougher decision to pull back than make the decision to?
You know, Lubna, we've done many IPOs domestically. This was going to be our first international IPO. So it was a big deal for us. And I remember when my team was coming to really give me the bad news, they were very nervous that we were, you know, this is ultimately it's a credibility point. We announced that we were going to go public, and we were, you know, the recommendation was going to be to pull back. And my reaction was really as relaxed as I am today. And I said, well, is the business, is there any problems with the business? No. Are we going to meet the numbers for 2018? Yes. Is our projection for 19 in the right trajectory? Yes. I said, well, what's the problem?
Right.
Do we need the money? No. Are we going to get better value if we postpone? Yes. That's
Very
it.
good. Carol, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Lubna, I'd just like to share very shortly that, we have a great big delegation here from Russia, our friends from China here, and everybody is very excited about the Saudi market. And we see a great opportunity to partner with PIF to pursue opportunities here. We see how much Saudi Arabia changed in the last 2 years, how excited young generation is about those changes. So we just wanted to share that we are very excited about Saudi Arabian economy, Saudi Arabia opportunities, and we believe that this conference will generate lots of additional partnerships in technology and infrastructure and in many other sectors.
Well, thank you very much. And I got the signal that our time is up. And it's a perfect time to close on this positive note. And we're so glad to hear how 2 sovereign wealth funds are so excited about opportunities in the kingdom. And
And a third sovereign wealth fund. We are also excited about the kingdom.
no, but I'm talking about the foreign ones. That's even more exciting.
But we need
We're
Yasser
all
to give us
local
more
art-
opportunities.
Huh?
We need Yasser now to help us with more opportunities.
Sorry?
We need Yasser now to help us with more opportunities.
Okay.
So we are
Yasser,
keen, we are ready.
You have to provide the platform and the opportunities for
Absolutely.
the international level.
Good, we have 3,000
Yeah.
witnesses.
Well, please join me in thanking our panelists, Khaldoon, Carol, and Yasser. Thank you very much.